So this is a huge development. It's already had an impact on the pelt prices. This year, the prices that the sealing industry is paying for sealskins have fallen dramatically by about 40% from last year, which followed another drop of about 50% from the year before. So we're really seeing prices hit rock bottom, and sealers are saying that it's just not worth their while to head out to the hunt. You know, given the dangers that they face, the treacherous ice conditions, the damage that they sustain to their boats, and also the high fuel costs. When they put those things together, it just doesn't make economic sense for them to go out and hunt seals. And for the first time in the 10 years that I've been doing this, most sealers have chosen this year to stay home. We've seen about 1/7 of the boats that normally go out to the seal hunt actually leave for the ice floes. And that's why this hunt is operating and proceeding so slowly. While there have been over 80,000 seals killed, normally by this time of the year, almost all of the quota has been taken. So we've seen a huge drop in the number of seals killed, and it's our hope that this year the sealers won't reach their quota. Now, all that is happening just because of the threat, the potential for an EU ban. If the EU does actually go forward with the ban of seal products, I think it will spell the end of the commercial seal hunt.
And you're fairly confident at this point that they will, or you're just being hopeful?
I'm very confident. I think the evidence is overwhelming. Canada's commercial seal hunt has been the subject of veterinary studies for more than 40 years. And not one of those studies, not the one sponsored by us and not the one sponsored by the Canadian government, has ever found that Canada's commercial seal hunt is acceptably humane. They have found that it causes considerable and unnecessary suffering. They've found that the methods of killing seals in Canada right now should be prohibited. They've found that animals in Canada's commercial seal hunt suffer pain and distress. And they've concluded that many animals could be being skinned alive out there. So I think, the writing is on the wall. The European Union has more than enough evidence to proceed with a ban on seal product trade. The political will is there in the EU to do it, and I believe they will move forward with a ban. And if they do, again, I think it could spell the end of the commercial seal hunt.
Well, how does the Canadian government set this quota of 275,000 seals? Are they consulting with wildlife biologists or scientists to, find out what's a sustainable quota that we can kill this year, or are they just randomly setting this? How are they doing that?
Well, the Canadian government has its own scientists, and I would stress that those scientists are working for the Canadian government. Those scientists go out and conduct population estimates every 5 years or so, and based on those estimates, they come up with what they would consider to be an acceptable number of seals to be killed. Now, the Canadian government stopped setting what it would consider to be sustainable quotas or quotas that don't reduce the population several years ago. Their goal is to allow the seal population to be reduced to about 70% before they even step in and start, changing the quota to allow the population to grow again. One of my big concerns about the way that they're setting all these quotas is the fact that their population estimates literally cover about 2% of the breeding sites. They go out and they measure the pup population. They do visual counts from helicopters. And again, they're measuring less than 2% of the breeding site of the harp seals. So using a very small sample that is counted visually from helicopters, they then extrapolate to a population that they give in a range of more than 2 million animals. And instead of taking the lowest estimate that they have and basing the quota on that, which would be the precautionary approach, they take the median, the mid-range of that 2 million seals, and they base their numbers on that. So scientists around the world, independent scientists, have come out and said that Canada's management plan for harp seals actually poses a threat to the survival of seal populations, and that particularly in light of the impacts of global warming, Canada's commercial seal hunt should be ended for conservation reasons. And I think, having, again, flown up there for a number of years, it doesn't take a scientist to to see what's happening on the ice floes. Global warming is causing that ice to disappear each and every year, and that is the habitat for the harp seals. The mother seals need the ice to be there to give birth to their pups, and they need it to remain long enough for their pups to be old enough to swim. Just to put into context what's happening, last year in 2007, the ice melted out from under the seal pups before they were old enough to swim in the southern Gulf, and hundreds of thousands of them died before the seal hunt had even begun. And yet that year, the Canadian government set one of the highest quotas in recent history, 270,000 seals, and allowed that hunt to go on. Now this year, we're seeing again evidence that global warming is affecting ice, and we're seeing that ice breaking up and melting far earlier than it should be. And this year, both we and the sealers are saying that seals are nowhere in sight. You cannot find the pups out there. And that's just another reason why this hunt is going so slowly. They're actually not able to find the pups to kill them. And I think, from a conservation perspective, these are clear warning signs that the Canadian government and its scientists should be listening to, but they're not.
We've already talked about some of the reasons why you believe in, and others believe, that this hunt is continuing, despite all these concerns you just talked about, conservation issues and humane questions of whether it's humane. Again, the scapegoating of the harp seal, blaming it for the collapse of the cod fishery, even though the government's actually responsible for that, this kind of glorified welfare program going on too. And as you point out, the Canadian government's losing money on all this. I'm wondering what their official reasons are. Are they claiming that the meat and fur from these hundreds of thousands of baby harp seals is needed? Are they claiming that someone's going to go hungry if these babies aren't clubbed, or that someone's not going to have a nice fur coat to wear? I mean, what kind of reasons are they offering up? Well, one of them, as you mentioned, is they're saying that they're affecting the cod fishery, which you've already shot down. But what are some of the other official reasons they're giving for continuing this?
Well, in defending the commercial seal hunt, the Canadian government routinely inflates the economic importance of the industry. And so what they will tell people is that there are thousands of sealers who rely on the income from the hunt. Now, I guess the question is, how do you interpret the word rely? In a rural community, people obtain income from many different sources. And, of course, all income is important income. But when you consider that the people who hunt seals are commercial fishermen, and they make virtually all of their income from regular fisheries, and less than 5% from killing seals, it's clear, I think, to anybody that this is a marginal industry that could be replaced by the federal government in a heartbeat if it chose to do so. If you do the math, last year, if there are, as the Canadian government claims, between 5,000 and 6,000 seal hunters in Newfoundland, last year, the seal hunt in Newfoundland brought in just over $11.4 million. And so if you divide that amount by the number of active sealers, and then you subtract the amount of money they have to pay to the boat captains to pay for their passage on the boats, on average, the average Newfoundland sealer last year brought home about $820. Now, that's not primary income by anybody's standards. That is supplementary income. And again, we believe that the federal government could implement a buyout of the sealing industry that would fairly compensate sealers for lost income as the commercial seal hunt is closed. And that buyout plan would probably give the people involved in the sealing industry more money than killing seals ever would. But unfortunately, the federal government right now finds it more politically expedient to support the seal hunt and to put all its resources into propping up and supporting the industry and subsidizing the industry, instead of finding a real solution like that would allow the sealers to end the hunt and allow Canada to get out of this controversy, which is haunting us around the world and costing us so much money in lost revenue because of international boycotts.
Are they claiming that the meat and fur is something that there are people relying on, though? I'm wondering what happens to the fur and the meat. And according to the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, that when I've spoken to them, there's warehouses just full of thousands and thousands of pelts they've been unable to sell. I'm
That's
just
right.
curious what's happening to the meat.
Well, the carcasses the majority of them are left to rot on the ice floes because there are very few markets for seal meat. It's very much, I guess you could say, an acquired taste.